Tonight we're going to talk about forgiveness. The fact that we are dealing with forgiveness sometimes can be a difficult subject. But first, I want to stop and I want to say thank you to everyone who has joined us. We do appreciate it very, very much. I thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come and listen to my thoughts and to what I'm trying to give to people just to help make the world a better place. And I totally do appreciate your time. Trust me. You could find us on any of the major podcast platforms. We are here on Podbean Live. We are on Spotify. We're in Apple Podcast, and we're on Apple iTunes. We're working on our website right now, but if you want to catch us on social media, we are. If you want to catch us at Instagram, look for at Yuza Bigman. You want to catch us on Twitter, it's at Bigman at Bigman Yuza. Sorry. And if you want to catch us on Facebook, it's at Yuza.bigman.9. I do want to say, if you want to support us and keep this content going, we love bringing this stuff to you because we love making the world a better place for everybody. If you want to help us keep this content alive, keep it going, hop on over to Patreon and look at patreon.com/usabigman. Consider supporting us monthly. We still haven't worked all the ins and outs of that out, but if you could, it would be extremely appreciated. I want to tell you up front. If you are looking for merch, we have merch with a logo. You see the logo on the wall behind me here. The mic logo. We also have what I call an element logo. It's a purple kind of a rectangle stylized. It look like almost like a link or a shortcut to a specific art program. Some of you may know what I'm talking about, but it has the initials YB in it. We also have logos with words that just say "Yuza Bigman" all the way down the front in the big block letters, 3 letters per line, Y at the top. We have those in t-shirts, coffee mugs, and hoodies, and we have a range of colors. Please stop by merch.streamelements.com/usabigman. And if you could do any of that, I want to tell you up front, thank you so very much. If all you can do is join in and listen, I'm glad you're here. I appreciate the fact that you're just here listening to what we have to say. We do want to make the world a better place. So let me jump back into this, because many times we do pay lip service to the idea of forgiveness because we don't want to deal honestly with some of the objections that people raise. We like to tell one side of the story. We like to extol the benefits of forgiveness without mentioning how hard it can be sometimes to truly forgive someone who has wronged us, who has hurt us, who has caused us pain and torment and just made life hell for us. And I understand that. Thank you, Lavi, for joining in. I'm from Texas. Appreciate you joining in with us this evening. But have you ever really heard people one-on-one just talking, make a case against forgiveness? Now, I'm not talking about in the midst of their hardship. I'm talking about just talking and making a case against forgiveness. Any spiritual advisor, any counselor, they would be a fool to say that what happened to you is so awful that you would be a fool to forgive, and it's okay to hang on to feelings of bitterness. Listen to me, it is not okay to hang on to bitterness. And yet that's exactly what a lot of people choose to do to themselves, to hang on to an offense until it adversely affects them, to hang on to that. And the reason we hang on to those feelings is because we build up a rationale against forgiveness in our own minds. We put it together logically, piece by piece, and we make a case that is airtight to us, and yet we know instinctively that these actual arguments sound pretty unconvincing to others. While we convince ourselves that it's okay for us not to forgive, if we voice it out loud, it is something that we know that as soon as it comes out of our mouths, that we're going to have a hard time forgiving other people. It sounds ridiculous. So rather than voice them, we just come up and sum it up in a conclusive statement, saying, "I can't forgive," and that statement turns into an attitude. Um, so the real issue is not, though, that we can't forgive. It's that we think that we should not have to forgive. You know, if I'm the victim, then why should I have to do something that is uncomfortable for me? Why should I allow somebody who has created an offense against me to go free? Let me check something right here. If you're not hearing it, I appreciate you letting me know. Testing 1 2. Our mic is registering. Testing 1 2. Is that better? Testing 1 2. I did turn the volume and the gain down. Testing 1 2. Is that better? Testing 1 2. I can hear myself in the headphones. So the real issue is not that we can't forgive, it's that we choose not to. So here's the deal. I want us to put forgiveness itself on trial. We're going to spread this over several, but I just want to put forgiveness itself on trial. And we're going to weigh the evidence for forgiveness. We're going to weigh the evidence against forgiveness. We're going to see which way we should go. Are there legitimate reasons why I should not forgive? Are there legitimate reasons why I should? Are there real reasons and times when it's okay to not let an offender off the hook and that is the right option? Or am I being justified in the way that I feel? Man, I'm telling you, we're going to dig some deep places here. So I want to talk to us about how forgiveness denies the seriousness of an offense against us. There are a lot of people who believe that by forgiving, if I forgive someone, that I'm denying the severity of what was done to me. It's like saying that what they did wrong doesn't matter. But even those people would likely argue that there are some offenses that are so petty that we should overlook them. Sometimes it messes with us. It's a forgotten birthday. It's an uninterrupted sentence. It's an unreturned phone call. There's so many viewpoints here that would support this. Those little things. But you got to keep in mind that even little things hurt. Little things hurt. Paper cuts hurt. We have to admit that paper cuts hurt. And so we know by the virtue of being able to think through an issue, that we know that everything can't be made a federal case. That every injury we experience in life, even the slight ones that hurt, we have to understand that even though it hurts, it's slight, it's going to heal. But what about the major offenses? They shouldn't be overlooked, should they? Is it possible to treat every offense the same way? Is it humanly possible that something as serious as childhood sexual abuse? I told you we're going to talk about some really heavy stuff here. That something as serious as childhood sexual abuse should be compared to something as trivial as a sarcastic remark from a coworker. How could God possibly expect us to treat them the same? Now, I want to say this. Forgiveness does not trivialize the pain that you're going through. Forgiveness does not trivialize the act that was committed against you. We all believe in forgiveness. We all should believe in forgiveness, even though sometimes we don't believe that forgiveness applies to us. But we have to understand that forgiveness, it works on such a deeper level. It's more than just a mental, emotional level. It even goes into a spiritual level. I want to say this. When there is an offense committed against someone, it creates an obligation. And that happens, somebody has to pay. Plain and simple. When there's an obligation, someone has to pay. If forgiveness is going to just simply gloss over all those serious wrongs that have been done to me, then maybe I shouldn't have to forgive. Or should I? Remember now, we're weighing out the evidence for or against forgiveness. The second argument could be made is that forgiveness lets people off the hook too easily. One of the basic hindrances to forgiveness is the fear that it's going to allow further abuse to come upon us. So we have a very legitimate concern that forgiving the one who has offended us, if we forgive them, then we believe it will give us permission, will give the actor permission to hurt us even more deeply. It's a very, very legitimate fear. I want you to understand what I'm saying here. A very legitimate fear. And it is so legitimate. I want you to understand this. That one teacher even went so far as to teach you have to forgive people 3 times for an offense. So the question is, how many times am I willing to forgive a person for committing the same serious offense against me? I told you one teacher taught that you have to forgive somebody 3 times. Another teacher taught you had to forgive somebody 7 times. So by going to the 7 times, he's going more than twice the limit in his willingness to forgive. And I'm not talking about people who, get into a Facebook battle. I'm talking about serious indiscretions and things that have hurt to the core. But surely, I've heard people tell me this. I've had people tell me this. Surely there has to be a limit to forgiveness so that I can prevent myself from being taken advantage of. Listen, forgiveness and forgetfulness are 2 different things. And I want to set that right now. Forgiveness and forgetfulness are 2 different things. And so we have to understand that. We have to understand that. But forgiveness is important. Because if forgiveness is just going to carelessly let people off the hook, to do this again, to hurt me again, then I shouldn't have to forgive, or should I? Argument number 3. I want us to talk about this. Forgiveness places too much responsibility on the victim. I mean, there's quite an argument can be made for this. Just the fact that asking victims to let go of their pain. We live in a day and age when that is akin to denying their desire for justice for what happened to them. It feels like you're denying what actually did happen to them. I'm telling you, listen to me. We believe, I'm talking about as human beings. I'm not talking about the perfected us, the better us. But I'm talking about in our really down deep in our core of our humanity. We have this belief that could be made for the fact that asking victims to let go of their pain and deny their desire for justice is placing the responsibility on the victim instead of the victimizer. If we forgive somebody, it seems similar to coming across a mangled body of a hit and run victim and just telling them, you take care of your own injuries. I'm going to go tell the driver of the car not to worry about it. It doesn't fix your injury. And the driver of the car can go on. We have times in places and situations where people have hurt us. They have run over us with a tank. And somebody has come along and treated our brokenness by casually, not in these exact words, but with a casual attitude of, it'll be all right. Time will heal all wounds. You take care of yourself. And telling the one who victimized us to just go on and forget about it. That hurts. Is it unrealistic to place the forgiveness burden on the victim of what was done wrong? Is it logical to expect them to be able to let go of serious hurt? And if we're asking them to do that, are we asking them to do the impossible? My goodness, I told you we were going to get deep here. It just doesn't seem right in our reasoning, in our own reasoning. It just doesn't seem right that a victim would have to struggle for years to get over something and to get victory over something that they did not cause, nor did they deserve. And yet the offender is able to go on through life as if nothing happened. You're sitting here with a heavy heart, broken, battered, beaten, crying at night, feeling unloved, unworthy, unwanted because of what has been done. And the offender has stepped up and said, I'm not going to worry about it. So while you're over here crying, they're going to bed and sleeping. So if forgiveness is going to just cause life to go on for the victimizer as if nothing happened, if forgiveness is going to place such a heavy burden on my shoulders, I should not have to forgive. Or should I? Now the fourth argument we're going to talk about here, and this is really going to get you. Forgiveness is unfair. So we've looked at 3 excuses for not forgiving somebody. Maybe we've kind of dug out a way to realize that forgiveness has to happen. But gradually, we've looked at all these legitimate objections, and I'm telling you now, they are legitimate. I don't want anybody to trivialize what has gone happened to someone else and has hurt them and damaged them. It is not something we need to put into practice. And because we have legitimate objections to forgiveness, we feel like we have inadvertently uncovered the bottom line argument on which all other objections to forgiveness are based. And it's been lurking in the background since I started teaching tonight. And it's this: forgiveness is unfair. Have you ever felt that way? That forgiveness is unfair?
I didn't find that.
Oh, listen. Have you ever felt that forgiveness was unfair? Now, when we see wrong committed, we know instinctively that justice has not been served for that wrong to go unpunished. Doesn't matter who is doing it. We know when we see it that when wrong is committed, the actor deserves to be punished. So isn't there something fundamentally unfair with letting our offender go free without consequences? And if forgiveness is essentially unfair, then I should not have to forgive. Or should I? Thank you again for joining us. We truly appreciate everybody who is coming into the live broadcast of this. If you want to catch us live, we broadcast on Podbean live. This is where we do our taping, and then we send it out to the various other outlets. So now I want to talk to you about defining forgiveness. Defining forgiveness. We have talked about 4 very rational objections that come up from a basic misunderstanding of the concept of forgiveness. So before we go ahead and get into this even more, I want to talk about what forgiveness is not, just so that you understand what I was saying earlier, because I want to talk about these 4. Forgiveness is number 1. It is not denying the reality of the pain that you are enduring because of the problem you had to go through. Number 2, forgiveness is not letting an offender off the hook. Number 3, it is not blaming you, the victim, when you forgive someone. And number 4, forgiveness, though it may be hard to see, forgiveness is not unfair. So if forgiveness is not any of those things, then what is it? If you go back to the ancient Greek for the word forgive, it carries the idea of a release of some type of obligation. And most commonly, that really was a financial obligation. So that's often the way that throughout history you're going to see this, like forgiving a debt, for instance. It was a story of a man that loaned money to 2 people. He gave $50 to one, $50 to another. Neither one of them could pay him back, so he canceled their debts. And he forgave them of their debts. So who do you think loved him more after that? A loan officer chose to release both debtors from a very real obligation that they had. The fact that they owed money was not a figment of their imagination. There are three things that I want you to understand here. These are going to keep coming up over and over as we talk about this. Number one, he had a legal right to be repaid. He was the innocent party, and he had a legal right to be paid. Number two, the people who borrowed the money had a legal obligation to pay. And number three, there was a deficit between their debt, what they owed, and their resources, what they had. So in accounting, you have to understand this is debt versus resources means that things are either in balance and equal or out of balance. If you got more debt than you got more resources, you're in over your head. And so the greatest misunderstanding about forgiveness is simply that it is just simply overlooking somebody else's transgression. The truth of the matter is that when somebody creates an offense, I want you to understand I'm using that word. When there is a situation that has caused pain, heartbreak, hurt, brokenness, turmoil, the truth is it's more than just simply overlooking it. It's an obligation has been created, and somebody has to pay in order for that obligation to be satisfied. Let me give you a little example. I like this example. You pull up to a stoplight. While you're sitting there, somebody rear-ends your car. And you get out, take one look, and immediately know your car is jacked. It's jacked up. It's messed up good. Whole back end is pushed in. And it's going to cost a lot of money to repair the damage. And you're standing there just boiling over because you were not only jarred unexpectedly, which got your tension up pretty good and your blood pressure up. And then you get out and see the damage and your blood pressure goes up even more. And then the door opens from the other car and it's a little precious, dear, older lady who has trouble getting around. And she's just sobbing. And she just lost her husband. She's trying to figure out how to get her way through this world. And she has very limited insurance, and among other things that she has not known how to keep up, she turns out not to have car insurance. You take the car to a mechanic, and it's going to cost $6,000-7,000 easy to fix. But at the scene, because of the situation, you told her, just forget it. I understand you're in a tough situation. And don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. You put her back in her car. She goes back on her way. So next day at the body shop, when they hand you that estimate for $6,000-7,000, you just understood real quickly, looking at that figure, that the offense, though it was unintended, created an obligation that had to be satisfied. There was a deficit between her obligation to pay and her resources to pay. She was obligated, but you knew she didn't have the resources. So you forgave her and you said, I'll take care of it myself. It did not get rid of the obligation. but it ignored the fact that her resources were too little. And the deficit disappeared on its own because you decided to cover it yourself. This is the essence of forgiveness. This is the heart of forgiveness. And if you don't get anything else out of this first lesson on forgiveness tonight, I want you to take this. This is the very thing that forgiveness is. When we forgive, we acknowledge that a wrong has occurred. Number one, we recognize that there, number two, is an obligation for repayment. And number three, when we forgive, we choose to release the offender from that obligation and we cover the loss ourselves. Now, a lot of us do not have trouble with the first two. I know when a wrong has been committed, and I know when there's an obligation for repayment. I know when I'm due. So we don't have trouble with the first two, but because we are expert record keepers when it comes to who owes us, not just in money. But the stumbling block for a lot of us is that third part, when we choose to release the offender from the obligation and to cover the loss ourselves. We say this. I've had people ask me this, and I teach this. Why should I suffer the consequences of myself when there's so many reasons why I should not forgive my offender? Now, I want to tell you something. Whether you're a Christian or not, whether you believe in God or not, I want to share with you one little tidbit here. Jesus addressed the idea of forgiveness when he said 70 times 7. Paul said 7. Another Hebrew scholar, Hebrew teacher, rabbi said 3. Paul went beyond that. Paul was Roman. He said forgive 7. Jesus said 70 times 7. Now, he's not being literal here. He's trying to teach you that it is far more infinite, the chances to forgive someone over and over. So if there is a person who cannot pay a debt, and you know it, how much greater the forgiveness for you to cover it yourself. I know some people are struggling with what I'm saying here. A servant borrowed money from a king. So the king knew this debtor owed him a lot of money. So the servant could not repay. So the king brought in the man's family and was going to sell them to pay the debt. The man fell down before the king and he began to plead with him, "Sir, please be patient with me. I'll pay everything." So the king saw the state of pity that he was in and he released him, forgave his debt. Now, the servant has absolutely no way to make even the smallest dent in such a huge debt. He's just begging for more time to try. And it's a pitiful sight. But what the king did was something beautiful because he felt compassion for the man. That's a perfect illustration of forgiveness. Go back and listen to what I talked about. There was a very real debt that was owed. The king, there was a legal obligation. The king had every right to expect repayment of the debt. He was due. It was owed to him. But the king voluntarily released the servant from the obligation and covered the loss himself. Now, I want you to understand that this does not take away from anything that you've gone through. We're going to end right now because this is going to go on a little longer than I thought we might hit tonight. But I want to let you know next episode we're going to be talking about the 4 strongest reasons why I should. But what I want you to take away from this tonight is this. We acknowledge what is wrong. We know there's a legal obligation or an obligation for repayment. Somebody has hurt us. And it's up to them to come to us to make it right. The second part of that is you deserve that. You deserve for that person to come and ask. But whether they do or not, you can forgive it and cover it yourself. That does not mean it's an easy thing to do. I need you to understand this. I'm not negating anything that has happened to you, because a lot of us have been in those torn places. A lot of us have been to the point of brokenness and had to claw our way back. Nights spent weeping while the one who hurt us, he spent sleeping. So I want to tell you tonight, whatever you're going through, you are enough. You have value, you have worth. You are created in beauty, and you are wonderfully made. You are enough. Don't let your hurt get the best of you. Stick with me and know when you wake up in the morning, you look in the mirror and tell yourself, I am enough. Thank you for joining with me tonight. I want to remind you, if you have an opportunity to drop by, visit with us on a social media site. It's on screen. If you're looking at it on YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be on screen. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. If you feel like you want to help us continue this, we would appreciate anything that you could do toward us on Patreon, patreon.com/Yuza Bigman. If you want to drop by our merch store, go to merch.streamelements.com/Yuza Bigman. We have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. We'd love to have you support us in that way. We thank you for taking time to be with us this evening. I really and truly hope that you receive something out of this. We're going to talk about the strongest reasons for forgiveness next time. Thank you again for joining us.